Welcome, everybody. That's right. We are here, the Boxing Source, live once again. And I'm very thankful to have with me another great guest we've had on here multiple times here. Thankfully, he's able to join us here once again. Of course, 2022 Trainer of the Year. Very busy himself right now. You know what I'm saying? Bob Santos, what's going on?
Not too much, man. Not too much. Good to be with you. I see you doing your thing out in the East Coast. You were just saying you're talking to some of the fighters out there. And that's what keeps the sport growing and living and breathing is you doing your thing and talking to those fighters, getting them exposure and what we're doing over here on the West Coast.
Yep, no doubt, man. As I was saying, was out in a couple of gyms here in this area, the DMV area, and you're just about adjusting to being in a new gym. I seen the post there. You have a new gym that pretty much opened up recently.
Yeah, we got the new gym here. It's looking real good. Let me give you guys a little look here. Let me turn this thing around here. You get a little glimpse of what's going down here. Hold on here. We got this thing. Oh, I can't get this thing turned around.
Yeah,
But let's see here. Let me turn this thing around. You guys get a little glimpse of what's going on here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Got a good amount of space there, man. I see all that stuff, man. Whew.
Yeah, it's deep. It's a big gym, and it's not just a gym. It's a real camp. So you got a camp house here. You got casitas for the sparring partners and things like this. So when the gates close, this is one of the few places in Las Vegas that's a real camp. Most of these gyms is just a gym.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big property here that has front house, casitas on the side. Tons of property here, tons of parking here, and for the sparring partners to come live and get ready and do their thing. And so we're real happy with the facility we got here, the size of the property we got here. So like I said, we're one of the few true camps left here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I was gonna say that right there. It was gonna be an actual camp. Like you could be out there and you don't have to go nowhere else.
It's real camp. Like I said, you got the front house. It's all gated off. It's a real camp property. You got with the sparring partners going with the casitas. You got everything right here, one-stop shop. You got the different kitchens and stuff like that. They get their food here, do what they got to do, and be prepared here. So when you come here, one-stop shop, real camp like it used to be when I first came into the sport. When you get ready and leave to camp, it was actually camp. Now, it's like guys are just training at a gym or whatever in the case may be. But that's not what we wanted here. We wanted real camp. We wanted to be old school, go back to the way it was and what I think it takes to get to the top and stay at the top. That's the one thing I always tell these young fighters. Yeah, you can get to the top, and that's hard in and of itself. But can you stay at the top? That's a whole different ball game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like you said, sometimes when fighters get ready for a fight, they could be there or at a gym, for a few hours, and then they could either like go home or like, go somewhere and kind of like camp out, and then they'll have to go back to the gym the next day.
If you really want to be truly great, to me, you got to pay the price. If you want to think it's like high school football, I guess, then you get high school results. If you want to be truly great, this is the price you have to pay. If you look at Denier Pero, he came out here, he paid the price. And now he paid dividends. Now he's going to be the number one heavyweight in the world in the WBA. So, he's number 2 now. I'm soon to be moved up to number 1. And now he's in title contention. Now he's right there, you know what I mean, to change his entire life around. But he paid the price, and that's what you have to do. And that's why you have the dominant performance on the zone in that nice 10-rounder there. And they had Miller. They had everything set up for Thompson versus Miller. But we spoiled those plans, and now we're going to be the number 1 contender. Now we're going to be in the position to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world. It's because he came out to camp. He paid the price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see that, Eddie Hearn. We knew that we had a couple of plans here and there, and Denier Pero was able to dispatch of all those plans. You feel me? Like you said, he's there in that position, currently number 2 in the WBA in the heavyweight rankings. And you do have Moses Atama or something like that there at number 1 currently.
Yep.
We see what's going on as far as like those rankings. They usually release at the end of the month for the WBA, so maybe we see what could go on as far as like these next couple of weeks to get Denier Pero closer to that world title shot.
He's close. He's knocking on the door. He's as close as he ever has been, obviously, and I think he's going to get a shot sooner rather than later. So he put himself in position with that great performance, and like I said, we'll let it play out. But I think we're right there knocking on the door.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, with that, being said, there you have the fights there in Orlando, Florida, and having that preparation there for Denier Pero, and of course, he's there, with his brother Denier Pero, and as you say, they're pretty much like the Cuban version of the Klitschko brothers. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I
So,
call them, the Cuban Klitschko's, and so now one's number 2 and the other one's number 9, and every day getting a step closer to reaching their dreams, their goals, and I'm glad to be a part of that every step of the way. And like I said, here at Santos Boxing Camp, not gym, I should say Santos Boxing Camp. So for you young fighters, when you want to come to camp and live it and breathe it and come to the home of prize fighters, hit us up. We're ready to work with you.
yeah, there you go, because you got everything. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to go nowhere else. Everything's right there at
One
the
stop
Bob
shop.
Santos.
Yeah,
One
one
stop
stop
shop.
shop. Yo.
There you go. Most definitely, most definitely. Now you had the thing there as far as like with Denier Pero there in Orlando, Florida, and we recently got the announcement there for Isaac Lucero to be part of the card there on December 6th. There, so definitely looking forward to seeing Lucero there in action. It's supposed to be against Roberto Valenzuela Jr. We said that Valenzuela is a tough veteran who's faced some of the division's best, and he's coming into the ring with a winning streak, but he said also that this is my time, and he's going to show why on December 6th, and also said that you will have him ready to showcase his skills and put on a great show there for that date, man. So I know that I've seen him, being there, working out in camp and stuff like that. So, like, how is it to have him get prepared for this on December 6th?
Interesting enough, early on, we were working with Erickson Lubin, who's got that big fight with Ortiz. Although he's a left-hander, we were getting some early rounds with him, and then we're going to switch over. Then the fight got postponed, so we still helped out Lubin to finish out his camp, and back to right-handed sparring now. So real interesting to see that fight with Lubin and Ortiz. So we got a lot of great work in with Lubin. Man, he's a very, very talented fighter, and I'm sure Lubin would say the same thing about Isaac Lucero. He's a different animal in and of itself. And again, a shout out to Lamont Roach, you know what I mean, and Isaac Cruz for putting on this card together and headlining it. So we're just thankful to be a part of that. And so again, a shout out to Roach, Washington D.C. kid, gonna be doing his thing with Isaac Cruz, and then we're gonna be on that undercard and opportunity for us to showcase what Puro Mexico can do, Isaac Lucero. So we'll see how that's gonna go. And then I have Luis Nunez who will be on that card too. He's gonna put himself in a position either to be maybe 1, 2, or 3. If we can pull off the W against the Argentine, I feel confident that we will. And Elijah Garcia will be making his debut at 168 pounds on that card. And don't forget, I also have Erisland Lara against Janabek for the unification. So it's going to be a busy night for Santos Boxing in San Antonio in the Wild Wild West, to say the least.
Yeah, San Antonio, Texas, man. Definitely with all of that action there. You talk about there with Luis the Twist Nunez
Yeah.
there, going up against Hector Sosa there. Of course, he's trying to go 22-0 there with that particular bout, and also with Eris Landy Lara in action too. And as you said, with that super middleweight debut there for Elijah Garcia. So hey, it's a very, very busy night there for Bob Santos.
Yeah, Santos Boxing, like I always tell people, it's better to be blessed than good. So I'll take the blessings from the good Lord Jesus Christ. So I'm thankful to be in the position that I'm in. And obviously, we got to work hard and do our part, but it's better to be blessed than good.
Yep. And you also had something there. I guess you're working with what is it called? War tape. I've seen a recent post about that with
Oh, yeah.
too.
Oh, yeah. I always wrap my guys' hands in war tape. That's what I use for the fights. I think war tape's the best tape out there. I always wrap them hands in war tape. Mike Rodriguez. I think they do a great job. It's easy to work with. It's easy to mold on the hand, so that I really like working with that.
Yeah, for sure, man. And as you said there with Santos boxing camp, having those multitude of fighters there, the ones that you mentioned, we also have, of course, Mario Barrios, that's there that, you've been working with, of course, WBC welterweight champion. We had, his performance there against Manny Pacquiao earlier this year. And, some people are looking to see like what could be next year for Mario Barrios. So, once we get something, then we'll be able to catch up with Mario Barrios. Of course, he's based in San Antonio too, so we got to see what's going to be coming up for him.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be able to put this Ryan Garcia fight together. I know there's been a little bit of talks here and there. Everybody's talking about, so we'll see how that plays out. You never know. I always say, until the bell rings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because like there's been multiple times in boxing where there might be a fight that could actually happen, and then all of a sudden, it does it. We pretty much like had a recent example here from a couple of days ago. So there you
Yep.
go.
That's that's boxing. That's part of life too. There's no givens in life. Until the bell rings, till they're inside that squared circle, anything can happen. You just never know what's going to happen in life.
Mm-hmm. A piece to Just Do Boxing, able to chime in on the live chat here. He says shout out to Coach Bob Santos. Of course, as I said, he's had his links here with the Pero brothers, Denier Pero, that was in action. Denier Pero, will hopefully see what's going to be going on with him later on down the line too. So, like I said, it's a very, very packed camp out there. And then also, on top of that, with being a trainer, and you could be like a chief second and a cut man too, because you work with a lot of fighters there, as far as like being a chief second or a cut man as well.
Well, when I came into this sport, I said it many times, the coach, you had to do everything. There was no such thing as strength coaches when I came into boxing. Yeah, I'm not saying they don't have a role, or they can't benefit a fighter to a degree if you really truly know what you're doing. And you had to pay your dues, and so where you could get your foot in the door and learn as much as you could on the job. And if you want to build a house, you got to be complete. You got to know how to do the foundation. You got to know how to do the electrical. You got to know how to do the plumbing if you want the house to be complete. And so I was very fortunate to work with a lot of great guys, as I've said in the past, Joe Goosens of the world, Ronnie Shields, and so sometimes as a head coach, sometimes as a second in command as a co-coach, and sometimes just as a guy that just worked the cuts and the fights. And I tried to work as many corners as I possibly could coming up to get experience. I don't care what role it was, from carrying the bucket to any of those things, because you can't buy experience. And in 35 years of working corners, and you young fighters have to understand this, be very careful you don't get sold a bill of goods from somebody. I always say the guy who says he can reinvent the wheel. When you look down that highway, there's one thing those cars all have in common. They still have tires. They still have wheels. So when you hear these guys, I can reinvent the wheel, I can do this, I can do that, I doubt it. I doubt it. You better be pretty damn special to reinvent the wheel. So usually go with the Joe Goosens and Robert Garcias and Freddie Roaches. They're there for a reason. You may think, well, this or that. Hey, let me tell you something. You can't buy experience. And when a guy has worked thousands of corners against a guy who's only worked a few corners. Now, I'm not saying that guy who's only worked a few corners can't win a fight with a superior fighter against that guy. But when all things are equal, and you have to make split-second decisions in rounds and read the moments and understand what's going on in real time. You want the guy who's driven in that seat many, many times before, because more times than not, he's going to be able to get you through it.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And Just Do Boxing says, yeah, that's great advice there, Coach Santos, man. And but brother Champ Ross in the building says, what's up there? Boxing Source and Coach Santos. And, like you said there with the thing as far as like you can't buy experience. I mentioned this to one of the fighters out here. I said, with boxing, it's almost like a chessboard. And, as a trainer, you pretty much like be a player in chess, because you got to be able to move, hit the fighter that you have in the right spot so that they'll be able to make the right moves in order to win the fight. You know what I
That's
mean?
right. And when the pressure comes on, everybody says, oh, this, that, and the other. You ain't never been there. So how do you know you're gonna make these decisions and adjustments if you have not been there? And even if you've been there, but you've been there 2 times as opposed to like an Emmanuel Stewart in his time or Bo Mack or these guys, bro, they've done it time and time and time again. If you're going to have surgery, would you want to go to the doctor who's had a success rate in the 90%? He's had over thousands and thousands of surgeries. Or do you want to go to the doctor who says, I think I can get it done. This is going to be my first brain surgery. That's the guy that you want to go to. So you young fighters, you got one career. You better be very, very sure who you invest and entrust that career to.
Yep. Yeah, that's for sure. In every step of the thing there when it comes to professional boxing, trainers, cutmen, managers, promoters, all of that, you got to be really, really mindful of what's going on, there in the boxing game. Now, I caught an article that was recently posted out there by Arnie Lang as far as like, what was going on with the Pero brothers. And one of the things there, he says, mentioning the gym, like we talk about, or as you say, the fight camp, right? You talked about, the like the Iron Gate or whatever it is and stuff like that. And he says, like, yeah, if you have one of the Pero brothers or both of them, you're becoming heavyweight champions. I don't know, you might have to add some barbed wire on there, for the feds and everything like that, man, to kind of like see what's going on and what's going down. So as busy as the camp could pretty much get there, you know what I mean? You might have to kind of like make some modifications to what's going on outside of the camp. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. No two ways about that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Now, as you was talking about with what's coming up here for December 6th, and you got the WBA, currently the WBA middleweight champion there, Erislandy Lara. And he has that big fight against Anamek Almhamla, unification bout. Lara, coming off of the win that he had against Danny Garcia some time back. And so now it's like, hey, after all of this time here at the 160-pound division, we finally get a unification bout, and Erislandy Lara is going to be part of it. So like kind of going to how you would approach this particular bout against someone like Anamek Almhamla.
Well, it's going to be very, very interesting because Lara is a stylistic matchup for anybody. Can Janibek implement something that Lara has never seen before? I don't think so. But is he young? Is he strong? Is he hungry? Will his will and desire be too much for the experience of Lara? Well, we're going to find out December 6th. We're going to find out December 6th. So it's a very, very interesting fight. And I never lie to fans. I keep it 100. It's a very difficult fight for Lara. It's not an easy fight to fight a young, hungry lion who has the pedigree he does, and especially because, Lara is in his 40s. But that being said, Lara's a special fighter. He's aged like fine wine, and he's sitting down on punches. He can hurt you a little bit more than maybe in the past. And so that's what it's going to come down to. Will that guy's youth and hunger and desire be able to overcome Lara's experience and pedigree and just Lara's sure desire to win? And I think both of them know what's at stake is most likely a fight with Bud Crawford.
Yep. And we talk about the thing there with Erislandy Lara and how he kind of, as I said, turned the page as far as like his career is concerned, because a lot of people knew him as that defense first, read and react type of a fighter. Now he's starting to be a little bit more offensive minded and kind of like step on the gas a little bit. Maybe it's because as some may say, you might not be able to move as much as he did, back in the day. So you're gonna have to make an adjustment to make up for that. So
yeah, you know what I mean. I'll give the fans out there I'm sure you guys in Washington D.C. you could appreciate this because there's some serious hoopers in Washington D.C. You know, they got some hoopers in DC. They hit that jab step. But you know what we like to call it, the parks. And, you know, I played a lot of basketball in my time. I love basketball. It's one of my favorite sports. And we call old man's game. So those guys can understand what I'm talking about. Maybe I can't beat you to the hole no more like I used to, but I can hit you with some old man's game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just using this up here. And he's definitely doing that right now. He's setting them up, setting some different traps, and sitting down on some punches to let them know, hey, I can still hurt you too, young man.
Yep, for sure, for sure. So definitely looking ahead to that there for December 6th in a good bout against Janovic there, coming up. And, also, mentioned there for the card, Elijah Garcia, making that move there to super middleweight. Of course, he's, a young fighter that's had like a lot of, very interesting fights in a short period of time.
Yeah, for a young guy. There
Yeah.
ain't fighters, if you look at the fights that he's been in for his age, I don't think you could count it on one hand, maybe on a couple fingers, less than one hand, how many fighters at that age have been in those types of tough fights. Beating Resendez, obviously, who just beat Caleb Plant. So when you look at those types of things, he's been in some serious fights at a young age. I mean, to fight a guy like Terrell Goucher, an Olympian who's coming off a close fight with Adamas, to be in a fight like that at his age and where he is in his career speaks volumes to him about the type of fights that he's willing to take. So we'll see how it progresses moving forward.
Yeah, just 22 years old, and we had him. It seemed like that was there in the spotlight against Amakal Verdal in 2023, and then have the fight against Resendez and Kevin.
I mean, the list goes on and on and on. The guy's been in there with some solid competition.
Yep, no doubt, man. And as you say, with the list of fighters that you have that's going in there in Santos in the camp there for you, you have of course, like your son out there that's working with you and things like that. Multiple people out there. Bones Adams is out there in the camp there with you as well. So you have like a whole team that's in there that's working with you. So kind of like talk about having that camaraderie there over at your camp.
Well, for me, I want to do whatever it takes to win at all costs. I hate losing more than I love winning. So I don't want to be, I want to do everything known to man to put our guys in positions to win. You can't win them all. We understand that. There's one guy walking the earth right now by the name of Floyd Mayweather, and he's special and an entity unto his own self. So for that, in that regard, it's going to be hard to finish a career undefeated, especially, the old adage is, can you finish your career undefeated? Sure. But the old adage is, don't tell me your record, tell me who you fought.
Right.
And then that'll determine if you're undefeated or not. So you want to do anything you can. So, sometimes you may come up at the short end of the stick. And to me, you can live with that if you gave your ultimate. If you gave your ultimate and he was just better than you that night, or for whatever reason, you just got caught with something, that's boxing. You get hit with something, you make one mistake, make him pay, but you put your guy in the best possible position to win, and it comes up short. I can live with that. I hate the fact to lose, but I can live with that. Mm-hmm. But when you know that you cut corners and you come up short, that'll eat at you the rest of your life. And I don't ever want to put myself or my fighters in that type of position, especially because I know these guys are putting their lives on the line. So I got to give my ultimate best to them.
Mm-hmm. Like you pretty much you'll have your full attention there for your fighters, because you have that responsibility for your fighters there once they step in the ring and things like that. So that's something where, as you say, you can't cut corners in any sense of the imagination with that. But to that point about giving it your all there in the ring, even if you fall short, as long as you giving it your all, like the fans will respect you for that. You know what I mean? They'll respect you for that. You know what I mean?
No two ways about it. Like I said, and that's why I'm very thankful for us to put together a real camp, a camp house where you come, you stay, you live, you eat, sleep, and shit boxing. And therefore, I know when I look at their family members, we left no stone unturned to put your loved one in a position not only to win, but to stay healthy. And so we want to work as hard as we possibly can to be in those types of positions. And no disrespect to anybody else or whatever they're doing, but we want to be here and we want to see everything that's going on. We want to see the road work. We want to see what's going on with this. We just don't want to see you for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or what have you at the gym, and I'll see you tomorrow, like it's a 9 to 5 clocking in. No, let's live it, eat it, sleep it, breathe it, and shit it from the start of camp to the finish of camp come fight night. And I think you've seen that with Denier Pero. You look at his past performances before he was with us, and you look at his performances now. And there's a reason he's number one in the world, not just because of us, but because of us and him as a team and the work and the effort that we put in to be successful. And that's the difference between if you want to be at this level or this level, and do you want to stay at this level?
Mm-hmm. Right. It's a big difference between good and great, in the sport of boxing. You know what I'm saying? It's about that, as Floyd says, like dedication, but you still have to have that, in you in order for you to get to that particular level. And shout out to Just Do Boxing. He says, yeah, you can tell that Coach cares for his fighters, which is one of the reasons why he's a great coach. You know what I mean? So
I appreciate that. And like I always say, proof is in the pudding. A lot of times people will tell you, it wasn't my first wife or my second wife or my third wife or my fourth wife or my fifth wife or my sixth wife my first wife, she was my second, my third. At what point aren't you the problem? So I know in terms of caring for my fighters, when I have guys like Robert Guerrero, who started with me at 15 years old, he's 43 years old. If the right fight comes along, he'll still be ready to get back in the ring. Robert hasn't officially hung him up, but if you look at it, we went from 15 years old to 43 years old. We're still together. And when you look at some of the guys that I've worked with as many years as I've worked with them, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. So these fighters know who's genuine, who's not genuine, and you can see with a lot of different coaches or managers. At what point aren't you the problem? This fighter wasn't right, and that fighter wasn't right, and this guy wasn't a good person, and that guy burned me at that. Well, how many fighters have stayed with you?
Yeah.
You might be the problem. So I've been very fortunate to do the best I possibly can to put my fighters in situations to be successful and take care of them. And they know when I look them eye to eye, I give them everything that I got.
Yeah, for sure. Now, real quick, have you caught up with the Candyman here recently?
Yeah, John, he had a little bicep injury, a little surgery, so he's been out for a while. He's at home with the family in Texas, and he should be coming out here anytime soon. But he has to have rehabilitation, and I love John. He's a great person. He's just a wonderful, wonderful human being, and colorful personality, and just full of life.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, he's very polarizing, as they say there. But
guys like him keep me young, though. It's guys like him that keep me young.
Yeah, for sure. But to your point, as far as like being there with the fighters and things like that, and how they could assess a trainer. But with you, given the amount of experience that you have, given what you've been able to do over the years, not just being a trainer, but being a cut man, learning from different trainers, from over the years, from an Emmanuel Stewart, from
Ronnie Shields,
to Joe Goosen, the Robert Garcia, and all of those. So I mean that tells fighters like, yeah, you've been in this game. You know what I mean?
For a long, long time, and not just me. And, I got to give it up to guys like my cousin who fought in the 1956 Olympics. Louis Molina was the first Marine ever to represent the United States of Puerto Rican descent. And so, those are the guys that paved the way. And then I was fortunate to carry the baton and move it forward from that point on. But I'm always thankful for the guys that paved the way. Chuck Bodek that I worked with, he used to get so pissed off. And for you, those of you forget, he was the guy with De La Hoya with all the pictures of De La Hoya on his thing. He worked with Roberto Duran. He used to get pissed off because he was in his 90s. His last world champion was with us, with Robert Guerrero. and they'd say, "Oh yeah, Chuck Boda, the cut man," and he'd get so pissed off because people don't know this. He was one of Muhammad Ali at that time, Cassius Clay's first coaches in the CYOs, right? And so he worked with all those young guys. He had Tony Zale was one of his first world champions as a coach. And a lot of times people forget guys like him. Oh, he's just a cut man. He used to get so pissed off. God dang, you son of a bitch. What do you mean? I was, you know what I mean? I had this champion and that champion. I can't, hold the pads anymore. I'm 95. But you know what I mean? So to be able to work with guys like that, pick their brain and learn from him. And he worked with me for quite a while too. I guess Chuck would be probably 115 years old now. But so like you said, being in and around guys like that, Joe Chavez was a great cut man, worked with De La Hoya, Miguel Cotto, and all those guys in the Southern California area. So I was fortunate to be around a lot of great, knowledgeable guys, much better than me, obviously, and take a little bit from all of them and then try to forge my own path on the way through, and then take that knowledge and reveal that to my fighters, and then use that in the situations. Like I said, you can't buy experience. And there's things that will come up in fights. And as a coach, I've seen it all. I've done it all. No, that's not true. There's circumstances that come up that you just never know is going to play. You look at Sebastian Juarez, the kid I had that they're saying may be the round of the year. Anybody who says they're going to go into that fight and the guy's going to get dropped 3 or 4 times, they're going to take 2 points from the guy. He's going to turn the fight around and knock that guy out in the first round. You know, I've been doing this 35 years. I've never experienced a round like that in my entire life. So I went into something, you know, if you would have told me that something like this was going to happen, I said, my man, that just sounds ridiculous. Yeah. But these are the things that happen that you can only go through it by having and being around that many fighters in that many years, because that's an experience with Casimir, getting off the deck with Corrales, because I was with Casimir when he did his first fight with Diego Corrales, and experiencing those things, and experiencing the fights with Robert Guerrero versus Floyd Mayweather and Lara versus Canelo. And the things go on and on. And so you got to be very blessed to be in those kind of situations. But that's the experience that you draw on to use for your young guys coming up. And so you young guys, like I tell you, be very careful of who you let guide your career. And I used to say this too, trust but verify. You told me you worked with Rocky Marciano. All we have to do is Wikipedia it.
Right. Yep.
Show me on the YouTube where you were in the corner with that guy.
Yep. Exactly. You know, as they say, boxing is the theater of the unexpected. You talk about that example, that particular round, like that's absolutely insane. That, you know, reminds me of like when I was at a fight last year in Norfolk. You know, when you had Abdullah Mason going up against Johan Vasquez, and Abdullah Mason, of course, you know, was coming up undefeated and things like that, and you know, he scored, you know, a knockdown or whatever it was, but he got knocked down himself. Then he scored a knockdown, and then he got caught again, and that was in the first round. You know what I'm saying? So those are like those type of instances. As a trainer, you got to be, you know, mentally prepared for, because
cool, calm, and collective.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was funny because Juarez's mother, she says, man, I was looking at you in the whole corner, and I never seen you panicked. I never seen you. For my son, I says, with all due respect, Miss Juarez, my job is to guide him through the fire, not to panic when the fire is happening. And I believed in him. I never lost faith in him, and I coached him for what I needed to be done. I told him, hey, tie up. You got to do whatever you can just to hold on and buy time, son.
Yep.
And then we were able to flip the switch. Now, if he sees me, if I yawn, you're going to yawn. If I panic, you're going to panic. And that, we can't have that.
Right, exactly. Well, God, Judge Du says, yeah, Lara beat Canelo to this day, Coach. Great job with Lara.
Yeah, we felt so. I think they did too, because I know Reynoso for a long time. I've done a couple camps up there with him. After the fight, before they announced, nobody knows this. I don't think this has ever been revealed. But after the fight, before they announced the cards, Reynoso and them, they were heated. So they threw water on us, like water bottles, like pissed off. Nobody knows that. You know what I mean? So I think that tells me everything that I need to know about the situation that night. Because we didn't do nothing dirty with the guy during the fight. We didn't give any animosity towards the guy after the fight, and they were just pissed and throwing water and this and that. I think deep down they if they're being honest, deep down, I don't think they feel they won that fight. I think they got a gift decision. But it is what it is. I mean, it was close. I could see, where some rounds guys could go one way or the other. But at the end of the day, in my heart of hearts, and I guess I'm biased, I thought Lara won the fight.
Yeah, man. We at least I feel like he won the fight there, on that thing too. So I don't know. Maybe he'll get back here with the unification, because we ain't had like a unification in the middleweight division probably since about back then. You know what I mean? So at least we had this big fight coming up for Alexander Lara on December 6th. And as I said, a multitude of fighters that are there within your camp that's going to be part of that December 6th card. So y'all folks tune in there. You got, of course, Amazon Prime pay-per-view. You got, Prime Video. I think you're going to have like some of the fights on YouTube as well. So it's like, hey, you got a whole bunch of action that's going to be taking place there for December 6th, man.
And Washington, D.C., baby, Lamont Rhodes, he's representing, man. So you guys are out of that area, man. You guys got to tune in for that guy. And credit to him, too. I had, obviously, Hector Garcia loses our world title to Lamont. That's how he won the world title, was against us. And credit to him. And credit to him what he did with Gervonta Davis. I was one that thought Gervonta Davis was going to stop him. And, he got the draw with him, did what he had to do, performed at a high level, gave great account of himself. And like you said, the theater of the unexpected. We could expect this, we could think this, but that's why they make the fights. And even the experts sometimes get it wrong. And that's the great beauty of the sport of boxing. One punch can change anything in any given second on any given night.
Yep, as I say, that's why they fight the fights here. One more thing here, it said Canelo's face told me everything out there from Just Do. I need to know Lara schooled them.
Well, man, I remember they threw water on us and this and that. And I was looking like, man, really? Like, man, you know, I know you how many years you throwing water on us, this and that. And at that point, I felt so confident we were going to get the win. I could see the discouragement in them. And, and then all of a sudden they gave the announcement and, it is what it is. But I would say this for the judges sometimes, because they are human. Like in the case with the Pacquiao Barrios fight, when you have such a crowd behind you and you do something and nothing even happens, and the oohs and the ahs, as a human being, it affects you to a degree. It's not supposed to affect you. You're supposed to, be focused. You're supposed to be a professional. But at the end of the day, we all are human. And, sometimes if you're scoring a round from over there and the guy's turned to him over here, the crowd's reacting and it looks like something, it's got to affect these guys to a degree. And whether consciously or subconsciously, he's the cash cow in the sport. And so I guess if you're going to err on the side of a caution with a round, do you err on the side of the caution with the guy who's the star, or do you err on the side of the caution with the guy who's just supposed to be, just happy to be there? I don't know. Those are the questions that they got to answer, but I'm sure it affects to a degree. And that time, sometimes how close fights, go ways that we don't think they should go.
Word. And my God, Just Do follows up with the Canelo and Lara fight. He says, they throwing water is wild. He said he should have been throwing punches instead of water.
Yeah, they threw the water before the announcement. I should have been throwing punches after the announcement. Yeah, they threw water before. Yeah. I should have been throwing punches after the announcement. But shit, I realize if I throw punches, I got other fighters I got to work with, so they'll suspend me for a year. So I got to stay disciplined to a degree. But sometimes you just got to let them fly.
Oh yeah. Now I gotta see if I could go back to one fight that happened. I think it was September 5th, because you were in the DC area, on September 5th with your fighter. I think it was Luis Torres, if I'm not mistaken.
Luis Torres. Nobody thought that was going to happen.
Now the thing was, I think it was the first round or something like that. It had like a headbutt or something with the clash.
Yeah, he broke his nose in the first round. Yeah. And here's the thing, too, a caveat to that fight. What we were talking about with coaches. In that fight, remember, I had to make a decision in that fight because he was cut and he had a broken nose.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the processes that are going through a coach, because there's much more than just, you got a guy's career in your hands, right? So if he's an Olympian, I mean, it's unfortunate the way the world is, but this is the world we live in, you know, the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. So if you have a kid, he breaks his nose, he's cut in the first round, he's an Olympian, you got big time money behind him, most likely we're going to say, you know what, we can't stop the cut. It's a no contest. But I know he's going to get another opportunity. He's got a big time promotional company behind him. When you get a kid from Mexico who doesn't have a big following, doesn't have the structure behind him, at that moment, I got to make a split decision. Do I say, hey, man, he got a broken nose? And I asked him, I said, son, can you breathe? He says, I can't breathe, coach. And so this is the process with me. I says, well, if we stop the fight, it's a no contest. But we're coming off a great win with Nicholas Walters. Okay. This is a kid that's not in big time demand. We had a tremendous camp here at Santos Boxing. If he can get this win, and I believe we can, it could change his life. It'll put him in a great, but now he's in a tremendous position. And these are decisions you have to make. And you young fighters, these are the coaches that have to make these decisions for you in those moments. And I said, okay, son, we can do it. Let's get it done. And fortunately for us, the gamble paid off. High risk, high reward. We rolled the dice and we came up. But these are the decisions that you have to make as a head coach.
Yep.
And a lot of people, those are the things you have to read in real time. And a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's almost like like as they say, speed chess in the sense there. When you have something like that happen, we talk about that previous example with the multiple knockdowns, and then this right here that happened, on Pro Box there on September, where we had that broken nose there early in the fight, and then still was able to keep the composure, have him still be able to do what he needed to do round after round after round until he was able to
give himself a chance to win. Because we all as boxing fans, we understand this. One thing I want boxing fans to understand: we always talk about A side, B side. Of course, would you rather be the A side than the B side? Of course, yes. And I say, as a coach, at the end of the day, it's not about being an A side coach or a B side coach. It's about being a winning coach. And so you have to understand when you say A side and B side, why does boxing have A side and B side? Well, I'll give you, a caveat in any sport. Whatever sport it is, whether it's basketball or football, you have the home team and you have the away team. And so when you're the away team, you're the B side guy. And it's the same thing in boxing. It's like home and away. And if you're going to be successful in this sport, sometimes guess what? You're going to be the away team. And you got to know what you're getting into. Yep. When you get into that situation. You're not always going to be the home team. Even Floyd Mayweather sometimes was the away team. What he did with Oscar De La Hoya.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's you young fighters out there and coaches, it's not always about being the A side and the B side. You got to understand there's a home team and there's a away team. And sometimes you're going to be the away team, but at the end of the day, it's about being a winning team.
Yep. No doubt. I mean, it's all about the win. That's it. It's all about the win. You know what I'm saying? And my guy Jitsu says, "Yeah, you believe in your fighter, which in turn allowed him to believe in himself and get the job done." And that's a great calculated risk that you made right there with Torres, and it paid off big time. You're right there. So we're definitely looking forward to seeing what's going to be next. There for Luis Torres. As you said, having that win over Nicholas Walters there on the previous thing, that was a previous Pro Box card. And then having that win, following that on another Pro Box card against Jonathan Cardoso. So,
he's going to be in a big opportunity where they could put him on one of those Amazon Prime cards, and he could be on one of those Netflix cards and stuff like that and change his life and his family's life. And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about, change. A lot of times people used to say, man, why do you give so much love to Floyd and he beat your guy and he beat Robert Guerrero. He was with you since he was 15 years old. I said, because the older and wiser you get, you have perspective. And Do you think I didn't prepare Robert Guerrero to beat Floyd Mayweather? We did everything we could to beat Floyd Mayweather. He was just the better fighter. But at the end of the day, let's thank God for Floyd Mayweather and what he accomplished, because every time he won and every time he grew his business, guess what? Everybody that got an opportunity at him, you had life-changing money. Now, how can you hate on somebody that built something like that to give you an opportunity to fight him? And so a lot of guys are hating on Floyd, and you know, and early on, I was one of those guys. I want to see Floyd get beat. Man, this guy just, and then, you know, and the more and more I just kept appreciating him, and then the more and more I sat back and I said, wow, what he's done for the sport. And then you have perspective, and then you appreciate it even that much more. And then when I was able to put my kids through private school and things of that nature, if it wasn't for Floyd Mayweather, that would have never happened. I would see Floyd Sr. and I said, man, thank God for the Mayweathers. He started laughing. I said, boy, it wasn't for the Mayweathers, my kids wouldn't have went to good schools, and we wouldn't have had the house that we did. And it was actually the Floyd Mayweather fight that really changed my life. And so at that point, you realize, hey, we just weren't the better fighter. But man, thank God he was so damn great and set the bar so damn high that when you had a crack at him, it was life-changing money. Not just for Robert Guerrero, but for Bob Santos, for Ruben Guerrero, for Robert's kids, for my kids. You think about that. A lot of people don't understand that.
Yep, exactly. You know, as they say, you got to understand something. My thing is this. You see, I gave him an opportunity, just like, Oscar gave me the opportunity, like Mike Tyson gave people the opportunity, or Muhammad Ali. That's what I do. So, as you say, with that example, you have the Muhammad Ali's, you have the Oscar De La Hoyas, you have the Floyd Mayweathers, you have the Canelo Alvarez's. To a certain extent, you had the Tank Davises, like having that superstar fighter. I'll add, Anthony Joshua, like all of those fighters, once they get to a certain level of popularity, that changes the game for boxers that's able to have them, at the opposite side as an opponent, because you get that life-changing money, but it also gives them the opportunity to say, hey, if I'm able to be him, then I could be the guy. You know what I'm saying?
Right. That's right. I in Tank's case, I'm a big believer in innocent until proven guilty. People say, oh, I seen this. I said, look, man, I don't know what a guy did 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That doesn't mean that he did something today or yesterday. So I give people the benefit of the doubt. I just hope that Tank understands not only could his career, and I'm sure it has, is life-changing for him and his family, he has the opportunity to give back to the sport that's given to him. And he has the opportunity every time he steps in that ring to change the opponent's life. He changed Mario Barrios' life, because when Mario Barrios fought, that's another one. He came up short, but look how many opportunities Mario Barrios has had now because of the notoriety. Hey, he fought Tank Davis. Now you know who the guy is. He's in the mix. And so I just hope and pray for him that he surrounds himself with good people that can be there to protect him. Because look, I'm sure he's made mistakes like I've made mistakes, and everybody bangs on the guy and this and that. He's still a young guy, a lot of money. And yes, you're responsible for your actions. But at the end of the day, I just hope he surrounds himself with good people, because there's going to be a lot of bad people. Just as young fighters, remember this too. Just as hard as you're working to make your money, somebody's working just as hard to take it. And you better know that. And whether it's through a court system, whether it's through you raped me, you did this, you did that. So you got to have people around you that can verify, hey, this didn't happen. This is what happened. Some sensible-minded people. And I just hope and pray that, and I'm not saying Calvin and those guys don't do a good job of that with him to a degree, but people that are going to be with him day in and day out when he's not in camp. And I hope that's the case for him, because, again, not only will he be changing his life, changing the sport of boxing, every guy that he gets in the ring with, you're changing their life too. Look, Lamont Roach now. Lamont Roach is virtually a star because he had a draw with Tank Davis. So I just pray that for him, everything works out, and he gets himself around some really, really good people that can give him the structure that he needs. And that goes for everybody. That even me, in my mid-50s. You know, you got to be around some good people, good accountability, because all of us, we can make a million great decisions. All it takes to go out one night with old high school buddies, have a few too many beers, and you think you're okay, and you get in the car and you run somebody over. You know, matter of fact, it's funny talking about that. I was just with the pastor for the Raiders, and you know, Ruggs, the talented receiver from Alabama.
Yeah.
By all accounts, is a great kid. I know the strength coach that worked with him and all those people. Just a great kid who never really drank. Never drank, and he was with his girlfriend, had too much to drink that night, and ran over and killed that girl, and just one bad decision. So you young fighters, you young people out there, just remember, one bad decision can just really ruin your life, man. So you really stop and think about the things you do before you do them, and surround yourself with people that are good. And for these other people that are around guys like Gervonta Davis or these stars, really step up and do the right thing. When you see they're going down the wrong road, if you're a true friend, you're going to tell them the truth and say, hey, man, that's a road you don't want to go down. Get out of the club,
Word.
man. That's not where you want to be tonight.
Word, for sure.
And
for
if
sure.
they don't want to have that be around you, then you probably shouldn't be around them either.
Yep, no doubt, no doubt. Yeah, my guy Adam in the building said, yeah, he felt bad for Ruggs there in that particular situation. You know, like you said, like when it comes to like athletes, you know, not just there in the boxing ring, but you brought up that example there with football. You know, it sometimes it takes a long time to get to that particular level, but it could just be taken away.
Yeah,
in just a snap.
one thing, you're doing everything right. You're making all these, and that's a lot of people understand is too with these people. You know, yeah, you got to live with the actions and decisions that you make, but we're all human, man. And it's easy for you to say, you know, at 25, I would have never done that. But you ain't sitting on $50 million in the bank and everybody telling you yes, 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 because they want to be there for the grab. You know what I mean? So it's easy when in that situation, when you're the guy that nobody's telling you no. Boy, it's a hell of a lot easier to make some effed up decisions.
Hey, it's one thing to say what you would do with a certain amount of money, like say with $30 million. It's a completely different thing when you actually have $30 million.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
It's a whole different ball game. I know. I've been in around. I was with, I did many camps with Shane Mosley when he was pound for pound at his best. And a lot of times I felt bad for Shane because a lot of people don't know this, but like with Shane Mosley, I happened to be in and around his camps at that time up in Big Bear. And at that time, he was pound for pound the best fighter of the world. He had beat De La Hoya. I mean, he was on top of the world. And sometimes I would just look at him in camps. It would just be him in the gym or just me in the gym. Early morning, nobody would even be in the gym yet because he had a camp house with the gym right there. And then he had a living quarters on top of the gym. Then he had a spiral case that would come down. He'd come down in the morning sometimes and nobody would be there. And I'd see him with nobody around. There's not the 25,000 screaming fans. And then you would see people that are around him. And it's hard for those guys in a sense because who's really around you for you and who's around you for your money? That's a hard thing to discern. And that's a lot of pressure on these guys, and not only that, the highs of being in front of 25,000 people and the roller coaster ride to now when it's just you by yourself, nobody's around. It's kind of surreal to see those moments with those guys, and that's why I learned you can't get on the roller coaster. Don't let the highs get too high and don't let the lows get too low. Stay even keel.
Yep, no doubt. And I have a little bit of an example of that here. But shout out my guy Adam. He says, yeah, a woman can make anyone crazy. See, come on. Hey, shout out to Just Do Boxing, man. Yeah, it said, hey, we just building here with that, and like you were saying with that example there with Sugar Shane Mosley, building himself up, there to be like the #1 pound per pound fighter, having those wins over Oscar De La Hoya. But, as they say, sometimes boxing can be a very solitary sport. And that is like one of those moments where it's a solitary sport where, yeah, he's doing the work and everything like that in camp and getting prepared for fights. But, there isn't that many people around him then. But fight week, oh, man, they coming out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? They're coming out of nowhere and things like that too, right? But it's one thing to see like how many people are around you during that time. But it's a whole nother thing to see how many people around you when you have a loss or your first loss or something like that, right? So I think
It's
it
the
was
worst. It's the worst.
yeah. So I think it was either last year or a couple years ago, world title fight. Angelo Leo versus Luis Alberto Lopez, right? And it was a really, really good fight. Really good fight. And going into like, the 10th round, and Leo scores that knockout over Lopez to get the win and to win the title. And you would have that on one side with Angelo Leo. It's there in I think it's in Mexico, around his hometown and things like that, right? But
Yeah.
then you have a whole different thing when it's like Luis Alberto Lopez losing the world title, going into the locker room, after recovering and everything like that, and only having like a few people around him, to be with them after that. Like I think they had something with like Oscar Valdez there with them, speaking with them after that. So it's completely two different scenes when you have it, when you pretty much like have everything, and when you lose a lot or you lose everything right there on that front. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It's a brutal sport, not just physically on the fighters, but the people that invest their lives. Like I said, when we go to camp, with my wife and kids when they were growing up, I would be leaving home for 8, 9 months at a time, not just for one camp, but I go say 2, 3 months. I'd be in camp with Guerrero, maybe come home for a week. I'm gone another 2, 3 months with Laura, and you're investing a piece of your soul and your life into those camps to prepare these guys, and you leave
Mm-hmm.
no stone unturned. And there's no feeling like it when you win, and there's no feeling like it when you lose.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
That's
very
true.
lonely sport when you lose. Much more so for the fighter, but it's devastating for coaches that truly want to win.
Yep. Because like at the end of the day, you're giving up a piece of yourself towards those fighters. You know what I mean? So that's the thing about it. Like you said earlier, that's why you hate losing much more than you love winning. You feel me?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think back, how many Christmases I've missed for this sport, and again, my father used to always say, "Hey, man, you made your bed, lie in it, Jack." So, this is the road you chose. Don't cry sour owl shit. This is what it is. Man
Mm-hmm.
up, do what you need to do. And I get that. And I'm thankful for this sport. I wouldn't change anything that's happened to me. This sport has given me more than I've given it. But you do think back to, high school graduations. You missed your kids' graduation. I missed my kids' championship high school games. But those are the sacrifices that you have to make if you truly want to win. And I know some guys will look at me and say, well, you telling me you couldn't have just left camp to go to your kid's high school graduation? Yeah, I probably could have, and maybe the outcome would have been the same in the fight. But how do I look at my fighter and say, you got to leave your wife and kids, and you can't break camp to go home, but I'm going to? So you got
Right.
to lead by example. And
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the sacrifices that you got to make if you want to be a great fighter or a great coach.
Yeah, gotcha, gotcha. Now, given that you had this thing here with Santos Boxing Camp, and as I say, sometimes, whether it's certain parts of, pro career or like certain parts of your life, it's like chapters in a book, right? So for Bob Santos, if you were able to, like write the book as far as like your career as a trainer or being part of boxing, what would you want to like kind of say is your, as they say, epilogue or your closing chapter when it comes to being part of the boxing?
The biggest thing for me, I, you know, I was just telling my wife the other day, like, I used to tell Guerrero, I says, well, we got to go to camp. We already got 2 problems. And he says, well, what do you mean, Bob? I said, you and me. And if we have a third person to the camp, we got 3 problems. And every person we add into the camp, we have another problem. And I said, Bob, I call Robert Guerrero Bob. I said, Bob, know this, there's going to be times that you probably hate me. Oh, no, 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 that's not true. I love you like family. I said, no, there's going to be times I'm going to push you in these camps when you go out to these camps that you're probably going to hate me. But I said, at the end of the day, I would rather you despise me at the time If you don't, then that's great. And if you do, I'm okay.
Mm. Hold up. I don't know. We might have like seen if we have a disconnect here. Might be something there where I don't know. We might he might it might be the thing with the phone. Hold up, I'm going to see something here. It might be a thing with the phone because it's been good little minute. We've had this conversation here for an hour. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to see here if we could get him back on. If not, then I'm gonna just have it here for a few minutes and stuff like that to see if he's able to get back on or whatever it is. But it might be that his thing here with all right, he should be back. All right,
Back
here we
in,
go.
we back in.
Yeah,
Here we
yeah,
So
we
like
back.
I was saying at the end of the day, um, I would rather you despise me, dislike me, but when your career's over, you're gonna look back and say, you know what? Now I see why he did what he did. And one of the greatest satisfactions, not that money is the be all and end all. I'm happy that I led Robert Guerrero to Jesus Christ. I'm not going to say that's going to be the case for everybody. Everybody has to make decisions for their own life on what they need to do. For me, as a Christian, a big believer in Jesus Christ, I think that's the paramount to my success. And I like to see everybody be successful. And so obviously, I share that with them, and they're going to receive it or they're not going to receive it. That's up to them, first and foremost. But then, secondly, when I see Guerrero, Laura become multimillionaires and be able to take care of their families and do the things that they have done, I know that I've helped change their lives in a small way. And that gives me the greatest satisfaction that you're changing the trajectory of people's families, legacies, and them to help them accomplish their dreams. For me personally, um, I guess the end all would be to be a Hall of Famer. And anybody who says not, I think you're being disingenuous, or maybe you're setting the bar too low. But when I think about, the International Boxing Hall of Fame, and you think about Muhammad Ali, guys that I grew up with, not only idolizing, but the guys that changed the social fabric of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And what this sport has given, and being able to, I was able to meet people that, advise presidents. I was able to, can you imagine me, Bob Santos, a kid who picked in the fields, and I'm able to talk and lecture to the West Point cadets and these types of things. So without the sport of boxing, so for me, Rocky Marciano, Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, it gives me goosebumps just talking about their names. I couldn't have put a pimple on any of their asses, but at the end of the day, to giving everything I could to this sport, and if you could set yourself at some point like a Joe Goosen and have become a Hall of Famer, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to me, for your family to be a part of that inclusivity, because at the end of the day, you young guys out there, do the best you possibly can. It's going to be what it's going to be, but why not aspire to be great and put the work in every day?
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't happen, I can live with that because I know I gave everything I did. But if it does
Right.
happen, I'll be more than thankful, more than appreciative, and I think that would be the be all and the end all for me.
Yeah, gotcha. Hey, so hey, you listen in there, International Boxing Hall of Fame. You got Bob Santos here. You should put him there in the ballot, and you should be able to vote him in. If not, then I'm gonna find a way to get up in there for the International Boxing Hall of Fame to put him
You
in
know
there.
what always happens though? The guy ends up passing away, and then that's when they end up putting him in. Most of these
See,
guys,
nah, see, nah,
most of these,
I can't be having all that. No, no, no. I don't like. See, I done said, man, I'll drive out there to Canastota, New York. I'll go through, all them roads up there in that interstate of New York with no lights. You know what I'm saying? Drive in the dark. Hey, if they got to do what it needs to be done in order to get Bob Santos in there, hey, maybe we're gonna have to do it. So we'll see what happens here within the next few years. But like I said, I mean, you've been definitely putting a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of love into this sport, and it shows here with what you've been doing. You know what
I
I'm saying?
appreciate it.
So, thank you as always here for taking the time to speak here on the Boxing Source, and we definitely want to be catching up with you here. Of course, as we got those upcoming fights here within a month's time. there in San Antonio, Texas.
Thank you, man. God bless you. And God bless all the fans out there. We love you, all of you.
All right. Salute. And everyone that's been able to watch, hey, big thanks. And we'll catch you later. Peace out.